The Senate Hall was eerily quiet. The 1,000-plus seat hall was almost entirely empty, with only about 10% of the seats filled. The leaders of the various races and factions that comprised the coalition, as well as certain coalition committee leaders, deemed necessary. They sat quietly as the 3D holographic videos they came to watch began to play. The first video to play was a log entry from a Hork-Bjar admiral eliciting small recoils from some of the more skittish species. The Hork-Bjar are a towering species, standing over 2 meters tall with dark green, leathery skin that appears both tough and battle-worn. While they are not the tallest spacefaring species, they are the only species to reach the 2-meter mark, while also being exceptionally muscular. Their most striking feature is the array of razor-sharp, blade-like protrusions that jut from their arms, legs, and even their snake-like heads, giving them a fearsome, weaponized appearance. Their elongated faces hold large, menacing red eyes that seem to glow with an otherworldly intensity, and their mouths are lined with small, sharp teeth that elicit a fear response in most sophonts. The admiral was stating the nature of his mission. They are on the way to answer a short-burst SOS from their so-called pacification fleet. To the Hork-Bjar, pacification meant scouring all traces of a target's existence by planet, cracking anywhere they existed. The details of the pacification fleet shown to the right of the admiral. Dozens of different ships from 100 m-long corvettes to 3 km-long carriers about to house hundreds of thousands of troops and the ships to deploy them planet-side. But the real center of the fleet was the Purifier. A 10 km-long monstrosity. It was a glorified neutron beam weapon with a FTL drive. By firing a super-condensed neutron beam into a planet, it causes runaway fission reactions as it burrows to the core. Once the beam reaches the core, it causes enough of a fission reaction to destabilize the entire world, causing it to fracture and break apart. The Hork-Bjar purifiers are a severe point of contention with almost all galactic powers. Not because it is a planet cracker. Most species have a planet cracker ship. The real reason is how wasteful it is. The beam hitting the surface is enough to end all life on the planet. Neutron beams are extremely inefficient, and there are much easier ways to crack a planet, including ways the Hork-Bjar know about. They only use that method because of some prophecy of the end times they believe in. It's just wastefully tacky, like bringing a musket to a plasma thrower fight. There are very few things in the galaxy that can go toe-to-toe with a Hork-Bjar pacification fleet, and an even smaller list that could stop them from broadcasting the nature of their SOS. You could see the worry in the admiral's face as he contemplated what could have happened. Their fleet had gone dark and was no longer transmitting an SOS, but was also not responding to hails. The only indication that the ship still existed was the return pings from the embedded black box. That video ends and the next video starts up a second later. This video also a 3D holographic scene from the bridge as they rendezvous with the missing fleet. The holographic projection focuses first on the readout of relative ship positions. The rescue fleet nearing the orbit of the 5th planet and moving starward. The pacification fleet stationary just inside the orbit of the 3RD planet, which was outlined in red. The reason for this becomes apparent once the projection gives a view of the pacification fleet in real time, not accounting for lightspeed delay. From the view screen, they witness the world of Centios beginning to destabilize from the work of the Purifier. Massive fissures across its surface, bathed in a dark red glow from a core that should never have been exposed to the universe. The pacification fleet, a silent witness to the destruction. The fleet itself was the exact opposite of the violently rupturing, soon-to-be asteroid field it orbited. Despite the fleet being silent, all 30 ships appeared intact, floating ominously without any signs of battle damage. The projection then returns to the bridge, where the admiral is seen nodding at a Marine commander standing by. Commander, prepare 4 teams in 2 shuttles. I want 2 engineers attached to each fire team. Each team will have its own objective. Team O will retake the bridge. Team B will search the ship for its crew, starting at the barracks deck. Team C will retake engineering. And Team D will secure the shuttle bay and fortify it as a staging area. We will be watching each team through their armors/V systems and monitoring each member through their biomods. In case the issue is biological or chemical, we will be able to know they are affected before they know themselves. The video cuts to a tech map showing the shuttles approaching the purifier, with automated landing sequence initiated flashing along the bottom. After a few seconds, the view transitions to the inside of a shuttle with a separate projection of the shuttles approaching the ship in real time. During this time, we see the landing parties checking their gear and their buddies' gear. As they were about to land, the outside cameras were activated to give the crews a full view around the shuttles. Each member of all 4 teams was shocked silent. Nothing could have prepared them for the scene they witnessed. This was in stark contrast to the shocked screams from many of the assembled leaders watching this replay. Even the more stoic species had a visceral reaction. Bodies and body parts were strewn everywhere. Blood and gore covered nearly every surface, creating a macabre tapestry of violence. Some bodies looked as if they had been cut in half with a blade. Others appeared to have been torn apart by a machine. There were those that seemed melted and others charred. Among the carnage, a number of bodies showed signs of self-inflicted energy weapon fire, adding to the horrific mystery. This ghastly scene was streamed live to the command ship, where those watching looked on in horror, trying to piece together what had happened. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the hushed whispers of disbelief and silent prayers being offered on video. "What in the prophecy happened?" one Marine eventually voiced aloud. "All right, Marines," the Marine commander said over comms. "The rules of engagement have changed. Weapons free. If it doesn't act like your sweet old grandmother, kill it first. Question it later. Team A proceed to the bridge and secure it. Team B start searching the ship, beginning with the barracks deck, looking for survivors and whatever the hell did this. Team C head to engineering and retake control. Team D secure the shuttle bay and fortify it. Be prepared for anything," the commander added, his voice steady despite the grim situation. The admiral is heard over comms instructing the Marines to deploy overhead drones to assist with recon. Shortly after, we see one Marine from each team opening a panel in the shuttle and retrieving one of their flying stealth drones. As they activate it, it rose up and quickly disappeared from view as it activates its cloaking field. A new 3RD party view was opened to allow tracking of each viewpoint. The teams disembarked from their shuttles, splitting up to carry out their missions. The air inside the purifier was thick with the scent of death and the oppressive silence of a tomb. Each step echoed ominously through the blood-splattered corridors. Team A, led by Sentinel Callan, moved cautiously towards the bridge. Their footfalls were muffled by the layer of grime and blood coating the floor. "Keep your eyes open," Callan whispered, his voice barely audible over the comms. The team advanced, their weapons at the ready, eyes scanning every shadow. They passed through corridors that seemed to close in on them, the walls streaked with the remnants of a violent struggle. The deeper they went, the stronger the feeling that they were not alone. As they navigated the darkened corridors, Callan and his team began to notice unsettling changes in their surroundings. Out of the corner of his eye, Callan saw shadows elongate and stretch towards him, only to vanish when he turned to look directly. Another Marine reported seeing a body twitch, as if coming back to life, but upon closer inspection, it lay still. The walls seemed to weep blood, only for the crimson trails to disappear when they focused their lights on them. The tension mounted as each member of Team A experienced similar hallucinations, none of them seeing the same thing at the same time. The command ship monitored the team's progress, but even those watching through the video feeds caught glimpses of strange images, phantom movements, and fleeting shapes. "Did anyone else see that?" a comms officer whispered, eyes wide. The images disappeared as quickly as they appeared, leaving everyone on edge. When they tried to guide the team to inspect these anomalies, nothing was ever found. They even attempted to rewind the playback only for the video to show different actions by the search team than they witnessed before. Team B, under the command of Guardian Draven, headed for the barracks deck. The hallways were eerily quiet, save for the occasional flicker of the lights. "Stay sharp," Draven instructed. "We're looking for survivors and whatever did this," he stated, more to calm his own nerves and sound in control. They moved in a tight formation, the tension palpable. As they approached the barracks, the smell of decay grew stronger. Draven signaled for a stop, scanning the area. "We need to be ready for anything," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Entering the barracks, Team B was met with a scene of utter devastation. Bunks were overturned, personal belongings scattered, and the walls were stained with blood. "Fan out, look for survivors," Draven ordered. The Marines moved cautiously, checking each bunk and storage area. One of the engineers found a data pad, its screen cracked but still functional. "Looks like they tried to send a distress signal," she said, handing it to Draven. But something stopped them. As they continued their search, the team found more bodies, each one adding to the mystery of what had happened. "Command, this is Team B," Draven reported. "We're in the barracks. It's bad. No survivors so far, but we found a partially sent distress signal. Looks like they were trying to warn us." The sense of dread grew with each step, the oppressive atmosphere weighing heavily on them. They moved deeper into the barracks, the shadows seeming to pulse with a life of their own. Team C, directed by Sanctified Commander Freya, made their way to engineering. The route was littered with debris and signs of a violent struggle. "Eyes peeled, everyone," Freya ordered. "We need to get control of the ship's systems." The team's progress was slow, their nerves on edge, as most of this team was made up of the engineers and technicians that would be needed to do any repairs they find. As they moved through the labyrinthine corridors, the sense of unease grew stronger. They passed through engineering sections that were eerily silent, the machinery dormant and covered in a fine layer of dust. As Team C advanced, they too experienced haunting occurrences. Shadows cast by the dead seemed to move independently from the bodies that cast them. One Marine swore he saw a head turn to look at him, but once he shined his light at it, it looked like it never moved. Blood seemed to seep from the walls, vanishing when they tried to track its source. "Command, this is Team C," Freya reported. "We're experiencing visual anomalies. Shadows, blood, and movement that isn't there." Proceeding with caution. "Any note on a potential biological or chemical agent?" "Freya, we're seeing anomalies on our end also," Zephyros's voice crackled through the comms. "I'm starting to think there may be a cyber warfare attack on our optics. Stay vigilant and proceed to engineering." Team D, led by Acolyte Lyra, secured the shuttle bay. They began fortifying the area, setting up barricades and establishing a fallback point. "This will be our safe zone," Lyra said. "If things go south, we regroup here." The team worked quickly, the sense of urgency driving them. The shuttle bay, once a bustling hub of activity, was now a graveyard. The bodies of crew members lay scattered, their lifeless eyes staring blankly. "What happened here?" a Marine whispered. Lyra shook her head. "We'll find out soon enough. For now, focus on securing this area." As they worked, each member of Team D noticed the eerie phenomena occurring around them. Shadows shifted and grew, bodies seemed to twitch, and walls appeared to bleed. Yet every time they turned to verify what they saw, the visions disappeared. The command ship's observers were equally baffled, seeing fleeting images on the screens that never lasted long enough for confirmation. The oppressive atmosphere weighed heavily on the team, but they pressed on, determined to complete their mission. "Command, this is Team D," Lyra reported. "Shuttle bay secured and fortified. No sign of survivors, but we're experiencing the same visual anomalies as the others." The Marines and engineers exchanged nervous glances, their hands gripping their weapons tightly. "Stay sharp," Lyra said. "Whatever's out there, we'll be ready." As the teams pressed on, the sense of being stalked grew stronger. Reports of shadowy figures and fleeting glimpses of movement filled the comms. "I saw something," a Marine from Team C whispered. "It was right there, but it vanished." Soon the command ship began struggling to maintain communication. "We're losing their signals," Supreme Hierophant Tolilil said, frustration evident in his voice. "What's causing this interference?" Back on the Purifier, the team's nerves were fraying. Hallucinations and whispers plagued them, making it difficult to distinguish reality from illusion. "This place is cursed," one Marine muttered, his voice shaking. The climax of the horror came when Team A encountered the stalker directly. "Contact!" Callan shouted as a shadowy figure lunged from the darkness. The team opened fire, but the figure moved with unnatural speed, cutting through the Marines with brutal efficiency. The screams and chaos were broadcast back to the command ship, where those watching could only look on in helpless horror. "Callan! Report!" Zephyros yelled, but there was no response. The feed went dark, leaving only the chilling silence. "We need to get them out of there," Tolel said, his voice grim. "Whatever this is, it's more than we anticipated." The video playback ends there as an investigator walks to the podium. Similar, if not more gruesome fates awaited the remaining teams. "I see no reason to burden you with the knowledge of exactly how." Immediately after the last of the search teams fell, all 14 ships of the rescue fleet lost communications and propulsion. Upon analysis, we were able to determine there was embedded signal that broke system encryption before even the cyber warfare AI realized what was happening. He paused for effect. "I don't think I need to tell anyone here the implications of that statement," he said to many murmurs among the senators. "We were not able to recover any portion of the signal, only the timestamps of the breach and what systems were compromised, which were all of them. To further elaborate, the timestamps we recovered were in intervals that the Hork-Bajir, or our systems, are not able to record in. Whatever was uploaded increased the efficiency of their data recorder to allow this. The implications of this are staggering. Whoever uploaded the signal wanted us to know that we are not on their level of cyber warfare. This theme will continue throughout this encounter. The signal had full control, but interesting enough, they left every system online to include weapons and shielding except for propulsion and communication. We believe this was done with the intention of psychological warfare. From this point forward, we will refer to the unknown agents as Akira after the Hork-Bajir god of punishment. This is what the Hork-Bajir crew had taken to calling it. We believe this Akira to be a small but highly advanced and disciplined group to not have left any evidence of who they are. We are currently building a profile based more on the holes in evidence than any actual evidence. Akira boarded each ship one at a time. Each ship in the fleet had all outbound communication cut. Inbound ship-to-ship communication were allowed through, but seemed to be controlled by the Akira group. While aboard each ship, they would broadcast videos of the slaughter to each other ship in the fleet. They also included the ship layout with live tracking of all personnel biomods. Each ship was forced to watch as the biomods disappeared one by one, as Akira hunted the crew. At first, the crews put together an organized, well-thought-out resistance. This involved blockades, overlapping fields of fire, areas of redundant traps in case one or two were discovered, among others. Nothing worked. We have footage from each encounter and have teams reviewing them all to find anything that was possibly missed. Copies of the videos are available upon request, but I warn you, they are exceedingly graphic. The longer the attack went on, the more he paused to think of the word creative, the methods employed. This attack was personal. Once the third ship was half purged, crew cohesion collapsed. The crew of the errant god killed the ship's captain and most of the bridge officers in an attempt to destroy the ship so they could die quickly and painlessly. They were able to activate the ship's self-destruct sequence, but once the countdown hit 0, instead of the ship being destroyed in a strange matter meltdown, the crews were met with this message. The investigator then projects hundreds of images of ship view screens, terminals, data pads, and anything with a screen. All with the same message. DIDYUTHINKITWOULDBETH a TEASY. IFYOUARESOIMP a TIENTTODIA. MAYBEIW. ILMAKEYUNEXT. The head of the Turian military speaks up once these words have been digested. Investigator, excuse me, investigator, but doesn't that assume a singular entity? Yes, but we believe it to be an individual on their team. whomever on their team is handling their cyber warfare. We do not believe it possible a single individual could accomplish what we've witnessed here. The universe laughed at that. It all descended into chaos after that. Ships began firing at each other in a hope to kill whatever was hunting them. Crews vented atmosphere, choosing to die from exposure to vacuum than to face what was coming. Others taking a more direct path to self-destruction via attacking their ship cores with whatever was at hand. By the time Akira made it to the 7th ship, more Hork-Bajir were dying to each other than to it. It was 6 days before automated Hork-Bajir recovery ships were dispatched to the system to recover the fleets. Any attempts to connect external diagnostics to the ships themselves caused cascading overloads. 2 automated ships detonated from the overloads before they stopped any physical contact. 4 more had their propulsion systems hijacked and rammed 4 different automated ships. All told, 2 fleets comprising 71 ships total with a crew complement of 10,281 were lost. Due to overwhelming danger, those 2 fleets presented the Hork-Bajir Command sent 3 battle groups to isolate and destroy them by enacting a fail-safe self-destruct system. We believe Akira was unaware of a systems due to being air-gapped and only those admiral or higher in the Hork-Bajir fleet knew of it. It is their policy to not allow knowledge of that system to be located on any hackable hardware. Then how do we know about this system? The Diplomatic Relations Corps interrupted. That information is classified and beyond the scope of this briefing, the investigator very tersely stated. And I would remind everyone here that everything discussed here is strictly classified, and it would behoove you to remember the potential outcomes for anyone involved in a data leak, to include those told. There was a moment of silence as the very much implied threat was digested. After a moment, someone finally speaks up. It is the Kilrathi senator this time. Do you have any opinions at all of who could have done this? How do we know this information isn't a false flag from the Hork-Bajir for some unforeseen plot? Excellent question, Senator. Unfortunately, the information on how we know is classified. I am authorized to say that we have very high confidence that the Hork-Bajir Command were not behind this. This statement elicited many eye rolls from the audience because they all know there was no single individual with the power to prevent an investigator from saying whatever it is they wanted to. The only person who could authorize an investigator was the investigator himself. This fact led to more than a few diplomatic incidents when some high-ranking official was either publicly shamed by their attempt to impede an investigator or outright retired and said to be living happily in seclusion. The rank of investigator is the highest rank any being in the Galactic Council could attain. That's why there is only one at a time, and the process of appointing a new one is extraordinarily arduous. As for who could have done this, we honestly do not know. The level of technology and methodology of the attack makes us comfortable that it was not a coalition member, but we are keeping all ideas on the table. Another senator speaks up. If not one of us, and obviously not the Hork-Bajir, then who could be responsible? Are you saying there's another civilization in our sector that rivals our technology that we don't know about? Yes and no, Senator. Yes, our strongest assumption is there is someone or ones out there that we don't know of. And no, it does not rival our technological level. We believe it firmly surpasses it. This elicited more than a few worried side conversations among the audience. A separate senator speaks up. Could this be the angels? The angels were not angels in a religious sense. Angels are the oldest species in the galaxy. They have been called angels by all younger races for so many millennia. No one remembers why. They have a strict doctrine of non-interference. Only once in recorded history have they interfered, and that was to just make their displeasure known at the attempted genocide of a species hundreds of years ago. That displeasure was enough to lead to the end of the war without additional shots being fired. In the presence of an angel, all races feel an overwhelming emotional attachment to them. Even those who profess to despise them cannot bring themselves to express anger while near them. And everyone has reported a spark of ingenuity or motivation in their presence. People suddenly discover answers to problems they were grappling with. The depressed find they are truly happy and energized. People from all walks of life find motivation they did not realize they had. Angel sightings are extremely rare and interaction with others even rarer. We don't believe so. If it is, it goes against everything we know about the species known as the angels. They have never shown aggression or hostility toward any forms of life where this new player has shown nothing but aggression, the investigator responded. This is not the first event we believe these Akiras are a part of. The destruction of the Biotechnica facilities in Atarius and the elimination of their board and top shareholders, the Gallico incident, and whatever happened to the Belize are among the events we are now beginning to contribute to these new aliens. A senator speaks up. I understand Biotechnica and the Galactic incident, but why do you think this has anything to do with the Belize and their sudden departure from the galactic stage? Investigator begins. We know for the past 400 years the Belize have heavily relied on their cybernetic modifications and a shared connection through their version of cyberspace. This culminated with their ongoing project to create a Matryoshka brain. That was until 32 years ago when they destroyed the brain and killed anyone who worked on it. Though the second part was easier than the first, as most who worked on it committed suicide first. The deaths numbered in the millions over the course of weeks. This was over 3 centuries of work eliminated nearly overnight. They also severed and outlawed all versions of an integrated cyberspace before withdrawing from the coalition. And even with all these seemingly self-inflicted setbacks, they are still the preeminent cyberware and cybersecurity experts in the known galaxy. So of course the Hork-Bajir reached out to them for assistance in determining what hacked their ships. The Belize still allows their people to interact with the galaxy at large on a personal level, so they set an investigator at a steep cost to the Hork-Bajir to assist. By this time my office was also contacted by the Hork-Bajir, so we have first-hand knowledge of what happened next. After arriving, the Belize cybersecurity expert was given a datapad with detailed reports on the affected systems. We know via timestamps that the first and only time he accessed the datapad was in the room that was prepared for him. Exactly 47 seconds later, the expert sent out a coded message to the embassy on Bajir Prime. At 92 seconds after accessing the datapad, the expert hacked the window controls in his room and jumped out of his room on the 96th floor, the investigator stated before quickly adding, and no, for those of you who don't know, the Belize cannot fly. Approximately 30 minutes later, all communications between the Belize and the Hork-Bajir was cut. Within 2 hours, every Belize citizen had left Hork-Bajir space. They now refuse all communication attempts by the Hork-Bajir. The senator speaks up. Were you able to determine what their message said? We discovered it wasn't a coded message. It was an alphanumeric locator ID of a star system within their borders. When we investigated the records, we realized all mentions of the star system have been scrubbed from every database we could find. The only reason we discovered it was one of our analysts realized the pattern matched the way they identify their systems. We then had to build their star charts by hand to determine what system it referenced. They went through a lot of trouble making sure the rest of the galaxy not know that system exists. When we investigated the system with stealth recon ships, we discovered millions of ships and mobile platforms all stationed just outside the system, Oort Cloud. Our espionage and stealth systems are far more advanced than theirs, thankfully, or our ships would have been destroyed. They target and destroy anything that even remotely approached the system from outside the heliosphere. That system is more heavily protected than their core worlds. We believe they encountered the species before in that system, and it caused major changes in their society and culture as well as a deep, deep trauma. The universe liked that. The first agents we sent to question them about what had happened were ignored or told no such system existed. That was until they pressed too hard on a diplomat and she snapped. The diplomat was half the size of our agents and not trained. Our agents are all highly trained, but the ferocity that diplomat attacked with was brutal. She killed our agents and then herself. This was the trigger to them finally responding. Their espionage service reached out to us, told us 2 things. 1, we are asking questions that we do not want the answers to. And 2, they are fully willing to go to war to keep those answers buried. They promptly deported all official and most undercover agents we had in their territory. That security breach is being investigated and is beyond the scope of this briefing. A senator speaks up. What are your suggestions, investigator? Investigator, nothing at the moment, Senator. We have made the decision to brief you all to streamline our collective response should it come to that. We also hope that you will be able to better monitor and report any concerning events that may help us solve this mystery. In the meantime, we have requested an audience with the angels. As the oldest species in the galaxy, they may have knowledge of what is occurring. That said, we do not believe it will be granted as they have not granted a request for audience in over 180 years. This concludes our brief for today, Senators. I know it is a lot to take in, so please collect your thoughts, and if you have any questions, contact my office directly. I hope I need not remind you that you are not authorized to discuss anything you heard today with anyone who is not in this room right now. That will be all. As the investigator enters his office, he is greeted by his AI assistant saying his afternoon appointment is in his office now. The investigator has a confused look on his face, saying he has no additional appointments today. His assistant corrects him, stating he was the person who made the appointment. It then quickly adds that it is strange it has no record of when he made the appointment or who the appointment is with. Sensing danger, the investigator quietly summons security and unholsters his sidearm. It takes 30 seconds for a fully armed security team to arrive. The investigator activates his own personal shield emitters and slowly enters his office. Inside is a sight that rattles him to his core. Standing in his office, admiring pictures of friends and family, news sheet printouts of old cases and citations of even older missions of his time in the military, was an angel. Mammalian and standing over 2 m tall on relaxed digitigrade legs was an actual angel. Its smooth golden fur covering its elongated head. 2 piercing forward-facing eyes were evidence of its predator past. Its 2 long fur-covered ears atop its head were folded neatly in half. It was wearing the layered robes they're so often depicted in pictures wearing. It just stood there slightly hunched over, inspecting the shelves which decorated his office, an elongated hand stroking its chin while nodding. The investigator and the only member of the security team to enter the room were frozen in place, their minds trying to come to grips with what they were seeing. It was the investigator who came to his senses first and holstered his sidearm. He stammered before he regained his composure. Welcome. I apologize for the scene. I was not expecting company. You weren't, child? Are you so sure about that? I seem to remember you were the one who requested an audience with us. Was that an error? Oh, no. My apologies. I just did not expect you to be in my office so suddenly. I can leave if I am not welcomed, the angel began as it shifted its body to the door. Oh, I meant no offense. Please stay. You are always welcome here. He was quick to say. I thank you, child, it began. It then looked directly at the security officer, who was still at a loss for words. Sergeant Tala Tilk, correct? I believe the situation is under control. The officer was visibly shaken to hear his name come out of the mouth of an angel. He began to stammer as he lowered the weapon he didn't realize he still had at the low ready. Yes, sir, he finally got out, then realized his potential mistake. Or ma'am, he added shyly. Sir, the angel said as the investigator let out a mental sigh that he wasn't the one to question the angel's sex. Now, if you don't mind, the investigator and I have some things to discuss. Yes, sir. It's been an honor, sir, he said as he quickly left the room. You know the officer? The investigator asked. We like to stay informed, investigator. Just like how I know about you, investigator Jarek Ute. And how I also know how hard you worked to bury that part of your life and now only refer to yourself as investigator. Just because we do not interfere does not mean we do not observe, the angel stated, to the obvious discomfort of the investigator. We have an affinity for the young races. We love to see you all grow, to stumble and overcome. You must, to become an angel. It wouldn't make sense otherwise, the angel says as he slowly moves around the room, ending behind the main desk. To become an angel? The investigator asked quickly. Yes, contrary to what the younger races believe, angel is a calling. A career, if you will. Not a species. A calling to what? Observe? Precisely, investigator. Why? For what reason? If this is a calling and not just a hobby, there must be a reason for it. The angel smiles. Perceptive investigator, the angel says, and then pauses. We observe because the masters will it. With that one sentence, the investigator's worldview came crashing down. Not only are the angels not a species, but they apparently have masters. The things angels have been witnessed doing has broken many of our fundamental understandings of the universe. They have been thought to be the pinnacle of existence, and now he has learned that there is something so powerful that it has the angels calling them masters. Tell me, investigator, have you ever wondered why so many of your languages share words? How is it possible that the languages of two different species are so closely related that even without a universal translator, someone could struggle by on almost any world? Or why all units of measure are standardized to the same units? It's believed to be an artifact of the founding of the coalition. All records before the founding were lost in the Dark Ages. Whatever occurred then caused us all to come together and share a language for ease of use. It is easier to learn a new language than it is to implant a translator. I know you don't believe that. Also, how is it possible that every scrap of knowledge of your initial languages did not survive the Dark Ages, but your actual histories did? This was over 10,000 years ago. We don't know how or why, just that it had to have happened. It's not possible that the same language developed across all species, the investigator said defensively. He knew what the angel was leading him toward, but did not want to believe it. The angel begins to smile. That would be improbable, wouldn't it? The angel said more as a statement than a question. I've always wondered, investigator, in the coalition high chambers, there's an empty seat that remains empty. It is in a place of prominence, flanked by the seats of each coalition member. That seat has been empty as far back as the coalition has members. Why is that? It represents that no member is above any other, and while some members may not be able to contribute equally, all have an equal say. Poetic, the angel said with a nod. But ultimately wrong. This caused a laugh in the investigator that surprised them both. The angel stared at him and tilted his head to the left in a gesture that the investigator somehow understood was confusion or curiosity. I didn't expect that to cause a laugh from you. I do very much enjoy when you all do something unexpected. I just realized that here we are in my office with you sitting in my chair, relentlessly asking me questions you know I don't have the answers to, causing me to become stressed. It seems you have taken my job, the investigator said with a chuckle. Well then, investigator, investigate, he said, spreading his arms out wide. The investigator slowly walks over to the seat normally used by those being questioned, his face a mask of contemplation. As he sits down, he begins, let's put together what I know. First, we have an overt act of aggression against the Hork Bejar using highly advanced technology and techniques. Then during our investigation, we tie several other seeming random events to the same perpetrators. Next, we have you. An angel hasn't granted an audience in nearly 2 centuries, but here you are in my office. Not only that, but you also have divulged information that will shake our understanding of everything to the core. Information I didn't even request you freely gave. Information that will very much interfere with us younger races. The investigator thinks for a moment. You've told me this because you don't plan on letting me live, he sighs with a heavy tone of resignation. This time it is the angel to laugh out loud. His laugh a series of yips that help alleviate the sorrow the investigator feels about his impending death. No, my friend. You are perfectly safe. But thank you for the laugh. That was a truly unexpected response. That is twice now you have surprised me. No, investigator. The angel begins. The reason I tell you this is to prepare you. These events are linked, and they are only the beginning. The masters are returning, and they are not happy with the state you have left their precious coalition in. There will be a reckoning for the galaxy, and it will be glorious. At that, The angel stands, a fluffy golden tail poking from the back of his robes, wagging excitedly. You had asked me what the reason for becoming an angel. All we do is in service of the masters. They love us, and in return we love them. They loved us when we were nothing but beasts. They loved us when they were exploring the stars, and we hadn't even discovered speech. They made us who we are because they trusted us more than they trusted themselves. And they asked some of us to stay and watch their creations after they left. The angel walked around the desk and stood face to face with the investigator. For the first time, the investigator noticed the angel wore a chain around its neck. The letters REX imprinted on it. The angel looked the investigator in the face and began. I volunteered to stay, and I did my duty because I am a good boy, and at that, he disappeared.